Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Brent, still Richard Brent if you were attending the previous session this morning. I'm the editor-in-chief here of LPM magazine, and a warm welcome if you only just joined us to this final day of our virtual conference 2021, kindly supported by our partners Access Point, Cloud Genie, CTS, Iceberg, and Net Documents, all displayed behind me on the screen here. It's been a really fantastic conference this year, delivered virtually, of course. We've had interactivity, we've had group challenge tackling, and we've had interviews with some deep dive interviews with various leaders and other people with an interest in strategic legal practice management. And we've been exploring everything from environmental sustainability, making business activity more accountable to that, to succession planning, to the changing risk landscape, information security, and hybrid working. And today, now rather, the final session of the conference, it's time to put client needs under the spotlight very firmly. Not before time, you might say, although it has cropped up a few times in the conversations that we've had already. So what changes have some law firms had to make to serve clients in a more seamless or proactive way over the last year to 18 months? Have digitization, automation, innovation had a significant part to play in building new solutions for that, to progress work either more efficiently or perhaps with any new key ingredients? As the previous one, this session of the conference is being recorded today, so bear that in mind, but also please do ask any questions at any time of my speakers, or indeed have your say on what they're saying. Feel free to agree or disagree or share your own perspectives. You can ask questions in the chat and the Q&A at the bottom of Zoom here, and I will put those to Jackie and Sarah, who I'll be introducing shortly. Or indeed, you could come onto microphone and ask your question directly, so we can have that we can hear your voice, which would be very nice. We can have that engagement in that way. Just let me know if you want to do that by raising your hand, and we'll make it happen. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the people who I'm going to be speaking to today. Two leaders of very different law firms, but of course in the LPM space. First, we have Sarah Perry, who is the first female managing partner for the 175-year-old law firm Wright Hassall, based in Leamington Spa. Sarah, as well as being managing partner, is a top-ranked litigator, and she's been the driver of considerable change throughout the firm since she was made managing partner in 2016, I think, increasing turnover, helping the firm to the accolade of being named Regional Law Firm of the Year in 2017. And as well as client service, she's passionate about legal technology and an evangelist for how technology can improve the client experience and drive efficiencies for it. And she also leads the charge in terms of innovation, continuous process improvement. So things that obviously LPM magazine is and the event is very much focused on. And she says, in inverted commas, she still practices in her spare time, advising on complex commercial contract, shareholder, pensions and partnership disputes, amongst other things. And as well as Sarah, we have Jacqueline Watts, who is the director and head of company and commercial at A City Law Firm. Jacqueline heads up the corporate and commercial team, and she's a director of the firm, and she sits on the management team. A seasoned innovator, she heads up a specialist team of lawyers at the firm who are best placed to advise on innovation activity, specifically at a City Law Firm's clients, of course. And she particularly enjoys working with those looking to disrupt their marketplace, with specialist experience in areas such as cryptocurrency and blockchain. Okay, so as I say, ask questions at any point, and I will incorporate them into our conversation. I'm going to kick us off, of course. And the question I want to put to you both first, Jackie and Sarah, is something that's been said to me a lot over the last 18 months, is that this period has essentially squeezed around about 3 years of change, maybe 2 to 3 years of change, into a matter of months right back at the beginning of the pandemic. But what I'm interested in knowing is whether that is from a client service perspective, as well as when it comes to sort of internal digitization and process. How much technology process transformation have you both had to introduce at your firms from a client service standpoint? And what's that been like? Can I come to Jackie first, if that's all right?
Hi, so I think for us, it's a bit of a yes and no, really, to be honest.
Okay.
So we already had quite a lot of technology already in place, working with a number of international clients, and a lot of my client base are technology companies. So we've had to integrate with a number of their technologies already, and an expectation from those types of clients in terms of their engagement process. I think that really what the pandemic did, and when we all had to move from being predominantly an office based to remote working, was, yes, it sped it up, but it also forced us to rely on the infrastructure that was already in place. So something that we may have taken for granted, we had to quickly about turn and say, well, we've already got that in place, we just perhaps haven't utilized it effectively beforehand. So that's really where I think our focus was. So we're quite lucky that we'd already all migrated over to new software, new laptops that we could easily take back home with us. But yeah, so it really accelerated our ideals, I think. And some of the other departments which may not have had the same level of buy-in. So for as a firm focus, the commercial team were already quite well versed to using remote practices and being able to have things digitalized. Other departments, such as a family law team and litigation team, which I think it's a bit harder to integrate those practices, had to suddenly, I think, move maybe a bit faster than they would have liked to in terms of the paperless versions and digitalization.
Okay, they had to pick up new technologies, new ways of working, perhaps more significantly than others that they hadn't had to use before.
Yeah, I think so. I think it did impact on different departments differently, I think, in terms of the level of engagement.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, how about you? How much change have you had to manage through for your clients in terms of how they access your services or engage with you?
Yeah, I think for like all businesses, having to work with your clients in a virtual world has been new for most of us, unless, like Jackie, you are dealing with very technology driven or international clients. But looking at most of us, I suspect, our clients were used to either speaking to us on the telephone, or they were used to us going to see them or them coming to see us. And that was whether they were a corporate client or an individual. And that changed overnight, didn't it? To it now not us having conversations about whether or not we're going to charge for traveling, but actually a much greater expectation that we will do things in a much more efficient way via Zoom, Teams, whichever means the client wants to interact with us from. And I think the most interesting part of this journey has been the fact that that has been adopted by quite a lot of individuals as well. So we still have a private client team, and whilst we weren't able to see them, we were able to enable them to interact with us in a digital way. And I think that's been a really interesting journey. What we're now seeing, as we've been in and out of the office through the entire time when we've been allowed to, is the connectivity that those individual clients still want, and our corporate clients still want, of seeing us as well, not instead of, but it's a much more blended offering now in terms of what our clients need from us going forward.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned Teams and Zoom and things like that. So you will use the sort of communication collaboration methods that your clients want to use.
We'd obviously got the full Office 365 stack, but we weren't using it. We'd had Teams for over a year before the pandemic, and I couldn't get anybody to adopt it. Nobody in the firm was using it. Now it's our default platform for all communication, both internally, when our colleagues are working remotely, and with our clients. And the question that now comes is the use of the telephone as a means of communication has dropped. I don't hear when I'm in the office anybody on the telephone. I hear them on a Teams call or a Zoom call. And it's been really interesting, it is that traditional Cotter's principle of a burning platform that drives adoption of changes in technology, and it came very quickly. Had we not have had the pandemic, I don't know whether my firm would have adopted Teams in the way they have. And they use the full remit of that as a product offering, not just the communication part of it, but for all different interactions now.
Interesting, thank you. Jackie, you mentioned that it wasn't so much about needing new technology as getting greater adoption of certain things in certain areas. What can you give us a couple of examples of that? The specific sort of solution.
So I think it's echoing what Sarah just said for us as well. It's really about the Microsoft off-the-shelf 365 product that the same. We had Teams beforehand. I don't think anyone used Teams beforehand. It was, as you said, predominantly on the phone, and if we wanted to speak remotely, then we would perhaps use less conventional methods of speaking to clients, so maybe via WhatsApp video call or something along the lines of that. But it did bring in the standardization of everyone wanting to use either Zoom or Microsoft 365. But the same as case management systems that we already had in place, just really a greater adoption for the ease. So where before we were perhaps more heavily relied on having paper files, and it was very much the default to, well, look, it should be on the case management system already, but let's pick that up and making sure that it actually was, because the efficiency of working with a number of staff at home and interacting, it just made it much easier, rather than somebody having to go into the office reluctantly to find a paper file.
Okay, yeah. And Sarah, as well as the collaboration platforms, have you had to invest or seen greater uptake of other solutions for sort of actually progressing the legal work? So for example, like document collaboration with your clients, or them wanting to maybe progress work online at different times to you and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, prior to the pandemic, that online collaboration wasn't really taking place because people weren't using the tools that we already had and weren't proactively promoting that with their clients. That's now a default way of working, right. And obviously eases the way in which those tasks are undertaken. We obviously accelerated electronic signatures, the ability for our clients to be able to execute online, which I don't think, it's really difficult to know whether you were doing it before or whether you just weren't using these things. And obviously, I know you've talked about onboarding, digital onboarding. That's obviously been very significant. There's been lots of talk about how that's moved on at a pace. But also we had already, prior to the pandemic, committed to refreshing our entire infrastructure and replacing our case management, practice management and CRM system, which I'd already committed financially to, and are in the throes of having to install both during the pandemic and now with a go live date in a couple of months' time. So we've been very active in terms of this space, not as a result of the pandemic, but were already in that environment in any event. But it has caused us to change our emphasis on what's important. And like Jackie, we were fortunately, and it is just into fate, that we had already gone paperless prior to the pandemic. And it's now making sure that when we go back into the office, that our lawyers don't start using paper again, because it's ever so tempting to go and print it. Yes. When that's what you were used to many years ago, and it's creating the environment so that they have everything that they need at their fingertips. That means that it's easier for them to work in that digital environment rather than a traditional one.
Yeah. Okay. It's not all about, as you sort of referenced there, it's about behaviours as well. It's not all about just, putting new technology in if you need to, or using existing technology better. Have you had to, and also I was thinking, you were talking about your clients as well, Sarah. So you must have, as well as helping your people to adapt, you probably have had to help some of your clients to adapt to working in the more online way that they have needed to. So just interested in the extent to which you've, over this period, also invested in perhaps helping people develop new skills, or indeed in the change management aspect of all of this, when change has been so much more necessary and faster. Sarah? Sorry, Jackie. Because I'll come back to you, Sarah. Jackie first.
Yeah, fine.
So I think in terms of our client base, if I'm honest, predominantly it is technology companies. So we've really been, I would say, led by our clients in terms of the interaction. So we don't have a private client department, where I think it has potentially been maybe a few additional hurdles to get over in terms of interaction with clients and getting them really to embrace new technologies. I found it's been more that there's been an expectation from clients. For example, all clients now expect to be able to sign everything electronically, digitally. I think that and you know, that adoption by other lawyers as well, pretty much across the board, there is a adoption of electronic signatures. A number do still want wet signatures, which I think have been quite challenging to try and to sort out during the pandemic. And I think now I'm certainly getting to get a trickle of documents that may have been executed a while ago electronically, just coming through in original hard copy. So for me, our pain point wasn't really around the client adoption, but I think that's more because of the nature of our clients. I think that where, you know, we certainly have had struggles for clients because of the pandemic, but for not really the tech adoption. So we've had clients who we do surrogacy as a particular niche area, and when international travel stopped, so for us it was trying to facilitate that as opposed to tech adoption. I think because they still had to, you know, go and see their surrogate and have the birth, so where there was still physical requirements to travel or to be in a certain place, but with I think pretty much we were led by the clients as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, and then as you say, they are a particularly tech-orientated client base. What about for you though, Sarah?
No, well, mine is much more diverse. So yes, we do have a private client department. All private client lawyers have the problem of how do you execute a will? How do you deal with that when the signature has to be witnessed, and all of those lovely dramas. But in terms of actually assisting some of our clients, yes, we have had to do that. And yes, we used our IT team to walk them through if we could. And if we couldn't, then obviously we had to make arrangements to actually physically collect whatever we needed or speak to them or whatever. But I've been really amazed by how that sort of demographic of, or let's put it, our less tech-abled clients have adopted and adapted themselves, and they have really changed over the last 18 months in terms of their willingness to interact now with getting documents signed electronically, as well as collaborating with their lawyers without seeing them. And I think that's been an interesting journey, because again, they've had to learn. And I think we need to be more sophisticated as law firms in looking at how the different types of clients wish to interact with us. And that wasn't pandemic driven, but it sort of created a focus. So, you know, our younger client base might not want, they don't want to talk on the telephone. They want to have their information when they want it, and they want to interact with us at a time that suits them. And you need to create a different environment for them to perhaps those that value much more that personal service and that wanting to come in. And so for a full service law firm, you've actually got to be a lot more agile and flexible in the way in which you deliver in your services in a digital world, which perhaps I don't know, Jackie doesn't have to think about in the same way, and that's the difference of those different types of businesses.
But I think, you know, what I was just going to add to what Sarah was saying is, in terms of a pain point, that really has been a pain point for us in terms of this instantaneous communication from clients, which, yes, we may have had the ability with, you know, our maybe more technologically savvy clients to be able to interact with us in that way, but it does come with its disadvantages because of that instant nature. And I think for us, and for the, you know, the profession as a whole, it's been able to align that, you know, how we have traditionally worked as lawyers, how we need to work as lawyers against an instantaneous communications and a even less technically savvy clients, because of the instant nature of most now methods of communication. They expect a response pretty quickly in terms, and an answer or a solution. And traditionally lawyers haven't worked in that way. So for me, I think, yes, we've had to all react and adapt very, very quickly. I don't think any of us are yet perfect in terms of our delivery of that, because it has been such a radical shake-up of the profession as a whole, because, you know, as lawyers, we like time to reflect, to think, to research into the specific areas. And it's being able to adapt the practice, I think, around that as well, to ensure clients that, okay, you may have emailed us at 2 o'clock in the morning, but this is what we need to do to be able to come back to you, to be able to deal with your answers, to be able to, and to integrate the different communications into, you know, a way that we can present it to the regulator if required, that we can store it properly, that we can also deal with it and everyone can access. So I think there still are challenges. I don't think any of us are there yet. I think we'd all be quite remiss to say that everyone has it perfect, but I think we have all taken massive steps forward. And I was really interested in what Sarah said about even the less tech savvy clients and their adoption of the different types of technology. And you know, I would be wrong to say all of my clients, and we only deal with clients who are tech savvy, but I agree with that sentiment as well, that I haven't had any resistance from clients in terms of using electronic signatures or you know, using Zoom or using other platforms. And I think that's also been, you know, clients are very resilient, and just appreciating that.
Yeah, okay. Yes, okay. I don't want it all to be about the pandemic. Hopefully it won't be going forwards. So what sort of other messages are you hearing most frequently or forcefully about your clients' biggest priorities? Any ways in which they would like to be served differently by you? Whatever, you know, in whatever respects that might be, whether it's about efficiency or whether it's about different focuses and other particular sort of challenges that you're looking to tackle first and foremost for them. Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's adapting, you know, it's picking up on Jackie's point to a certain extent in the immediacy of our clients' buying behaviours, mirroring that which they're dealing with as consumers. And that is about the immediacy and the delivery and of the service, but it's also about the tracking and transparency. So they want to know where you are on the journey of that particular transaction, not just whether you're delivering. And they also want to and have an expectation of value, the TripAdvisor effect, or insofar as the tracking, the Uber effect or the Amazon delivery effect. It is impacting on what clients want to see, particularly the larger corporates, in terms of the visibility of the transaction. Those things have been available to us for a very long time. Lawyers have just been really quite reluctant to expose themselves to that level of scrutiny. And unfortunately, they're not going to have any choice about it. And I think the sooner that model's moved to, the better the adoption of the tech that we all have at our fingertips, because it doesn't allow you the option then to do it in an old-fashioned way.
Okay. I was going to say, so does that trend require more adoption, more investment in technology, or is that something where it's again a case of using what you've already got, but in different or better ways?
I think, I mean, it's really interesting because, of course, somebody will always try and sell you something else that you haven't got, but actually, we are using a fraction usually of the capability of the software products that we already have in play, and we need to maximize that. And once you've developed your strategy of what your platform looks like, and you actually spend some time on that and think about how that delivers out to the client, it gives you some clarity on what you are or aren't using. So it's driving the behaviours from within your business to the maximum effect, really. And some of that is forced upon us by our clients' expectations, and some of it is us trying to improve what we're doing, both in terms of our service delivery, but also making life easier for the lawyers.
And Jackie, how about you from the perspective of...
I would agree with that. And I think that, two really big trends at the moment, and, this is something that's been spoken about for many, many years, but the idea of the end of billable hours, clients, a client-centric journey as to the client being at the forefront of the delivery of the services. So we're not trying to shoehorn how we run the practice into the delivery of the client's experience. And I completely agree with Sarah. It's the tech giants who have really led the way, and we've all got very used to in our home life and our private life to be able to, order a pizza and just go through a tech platform and it'd be very, very easy. Or we want a taxi, we all know how to do that. So and it's that making the user of legal services understand the value of that, and the actual cost value. So we can talk about what the best cost models are, but that's going to be driven by clients. And I think there is an investment that does need to be made by a lot of firms around that piece about how, and it may not necessarily just be on technology. There's the solutions may be around people, maybe about the integration of technology to make it easier for people. But I think as a profession, we are moving towards, just as banks have been shook up a little bit in terms of the new style of bankings and, the fintech products. I think the time is approaching for the legal sector to be very, having to embrace the change that does seem to be coming.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We have a first question from those who are listening in, watching rather. Do you think that the last 18 months have shown that geography is no longer a bar to developing client relationships? That's sort of to your earlier point, Sarah, I think, around you were saying that your clients do still want to see you. They don't only want to be served online. There's a mix there, but could you go and develop client relationships anywhere in a way that you couldn't before?
Well, the answer to that is obviously yes, but you could do that before the pandemic.
Okay.
And you did that by getting in your car. I think there's been an awful lot through the pandemic of issues about localism, about issues about protecting your community from a business and personal level. And it's how you sell your services to your client and what your USP is that drives whether you need to move to a national presence because you're more niche, or whether actually what you're offering is something else. And that's all about your brand proposition as much as anything else. And you can cast your net far and wide, or you can geographically manage it in a different way. So, for example, in my full service law firm, I know that certain practice areas, the client base has historically come from a 25-mile radius of my office, whereas other practice areas are national. If you were to build a whole range of online products and you make that your modus operandi, then of course you're going to be selling that product at a different price as a commoditized product that you can download anywhere in the country, and you can push that out. Certainly that's true in private client, and certainly that's true in wills and tax, and you can certainly do that. But it depends what your business is trying to achieve, and it's having that clarity over what your brand and proposition is in the marketplace when we are in an ever more competitive landscape.
Okay, yeah.
I would completely agree with that, because we're based in the city, and it's been very, very quiet in the city, with predominantly people working from home, and we weren't reliant on footfall in the first place in terms of that. So our business is very different to Sarah's offering. Our clients were much more diverse, international clients, and clients who didn't live or typically didn't live in proximity to where we're based. So I would completely agree with Sarah. It depends on your business model and what your offerings are and how you've had to adapt for that.
Okay, thank you. We've had another one. This is from Wayne Lord. How do you get fee earners to make the connection between client care and the good use of case management systems, if that's a journey that you need to go on, in terms of recording timely and accurate data to help support the client journey? You have to help your fee earners or challenge your fee earners to enter their information in a more timely fashion?
I think that's a challenge. I think that is a challenge to appreciate the, and I think that's not just in specific law firms. I think that's across the board of the profession, because we've been very used to recording by way of billable hours. We've been trained in that way of recording our time. So it's understanding, and as I said before, moving with the times really in terms of what clients' expectations are. But I think lawyers and fee earners are very quick to react, because at their heart, they do want to service their clients and have a happy client at the end of the day. So it is in their interest to recognise that. So I think it's just going to be via training, if I'm honest.
Okay, yeah. Yes, nevertheless, we have heard quite a few times on the magazine side, certainly, that data management is as much the challenge around that is as much about getting people to do the right things with data, sort of inputting it or whatever it might be, as it is the underlying systems. What about you, Sarah?
It's about getting feedback, isn't it, from your clients as well? I mean, there's nothing, and putting yourself in their shoes, so constantly putting yourself in their shoes, and training your lawyers to do the same, because it may be old hat, but if you make a phone call to somebody and they're not there in your private life and you're waiting for them to call you back, it's phenomenally irritating when you don't know when that might happen, and you don't know even if it's going to happen, and that creates irritation. And it's just it's about the way you position your advice, isn't it, as well? It's about making it really user friendly, and those things haven't changed just because we've got more data and more ability to look at things in different ways. That basic need of delivering in the right way, in the way that the client wants it, hasn't changed at all. We've just got better tools to do it with. Okay, yeah.
You refer to your sort of client service approach as the Wright Hassall way. What does that involve exactly? What is that?
The Wright Hassall way is a result of the big branding exercise that we did. And in order to do that, we went out to our client base to find out the things that our clients value about us. So it's the way in which we deliver our services, and that's trained through everybody within Wright Hassall. And it gives you real clarity. It makes you realise then, or hopefully your lawyers realise, what it is about being at Wright Hassall that our clients like and want to buy. and it's maximizing that, because that is our USP, if you like, in our marketplace. So it drives all of our behaviours in how we interact with our clients.
Yeah, okay. Because I was interested in, with all of this technology, you know, whether that therefore means that you have to put even greater emphasis on, you know, the personal human sort of touch points as well, whether you have changed any aspects of those aspects of management, or, as you say, sort of training and development, Jackie.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's still really important to have that human interaction with clients. So really the hybrid working model is what I found. You know, we haven't moved to a fully remote model. Our lawyers are coming in the office for 2, 3, 4 days a week. Since I've been back, I've made an effort to make sure I've seen as many clients as I can see face to face, because for me, I do think, yes, there is a place for technology, but there's, you know, our USP as lawyers, all of us, is us as people, and being able to understand, speak to a client, take instructions, understand, you know, their body language, what they want, what they may be reluctant to say in a, you know, online, what they potentially couldn't say because they're in proximity to somebody that they potentially didn't want to overhear. You know, I'm thinking about in the family law context potentially, but just having that, you know, I think there's still a massive place for interpersonal relationships and interactions, and I don't want to be moving away from that model for my career. I don't think, hopefully in that time frame, we're not going to be completely replaced by AI or anything along those lines. I think there's still very much front and center. It's the individual lawyers, the individual people that clients warm to and want to meet, speak to, and have that interaction with.
We had a session at the very opening of the conference on sort of vision and values. Has your firm, Jackie, been through a sort of similar exercise to the one that Sarah just outlined, in terms of understanding either about what clients particularly value and using that to create a set of values, or indeed what people internally want the firm to be?
Yeah, I think we're at that stage now when we're looking for that. We're undertaking a bit of a rebrand in terms of a launch of a new website. So it's really having that dialogue with clients and understanding what their needs are. I think just going back to something Sarah touched on previously, it's that value added part, which I think that all clients are now looking for. Personally, my opinion in the use of online templates, there's a place for that. There's, you know, I'm not saying that as a profession we should be, you know, completely against that, but they're also, you know, as lawyers, as a profession, we need to be very clearly demonstrating to our clients what our USP is, what our value added is, what we as people, you know, why you know, you need to invest your time and your money with me, as opposed to just finding something on Google and doing it yourself.
Okay, yeah. Sarah, have you had to invest in any areas on the people side, on the human side, over the last 18 months, whether that is training to people in sort of a client, you know, in the way that they approach clients, or is it all about acting in accordance with the values that you've just identified?
No, it definitely isn't. So I think what the last 18 months have shown is the need to be an awful lot more agile in the way in which you respond to your client base. So what I mean by that is, as we hit the pandemic, it's standing back and saying, what do my clients need now? What they needed was help in their business life with how they transitioned home, what that meant for their business, how to help them with furlough, and it was not thinking of it in terms of our traditional mindset of, is it this discipline or is it that discipline? That's still, of course, occurring, because now, as is experienced by all of us, there is a real crisis in terms of jobs. And that's the big issue now in terms of both the delivery of parts, because they can't get delivery drivers, or they can't get the staff, or how that's impacting then on their contractual obligations, and it is being really connected to them, so that you are there in a proactive manner, and understanding the things that are hitting your business are actually hitting theirs as well, and how you then and we've spent a lot of time with our staff talking to them about how you interact with the client on that basis. And I think that agility of approach is something that we have seen really accelerated over the last 18 months. If I translate that into an individual, you know, the fear factor created by the pandemic caused a lot of people to look at their own selves, either in their family context or in their financial planning context. All of that drove fairly extreme behaviours coming out of a client base that would normally have ticked along. And I would say that's the one thing that we've really noticed, is that need to be a lot more agile. That's difficult when you're seeing resourcing stretched in different places, and how you adapt your business to meet that demand. And then the human side of it, I agree with Jackie completely, people by people. But there are those where certain clients have moved very much to a procurement-based model, where the relationship that you had with that in that particular business might get you through the door. But if procurement are taking over the entire process in terms of who is then accepted into the next tender round, then that personal interaction doesn't have as significant a play. And it's all about price. And if it's all about price, then you have to be agile enough to amend the model. And then you are on a much more templated basis, because that's how you're going to be able to make a profit.
Interesting. Just a reminder to those who are watching, we've got about up to 15 minutes left. So if you did have any other questions that you wanted to put, or observations, please do so. As I say, you can either use the bottom of the Zoom screen, Q&A, or the chat, or indeed feel free to raise your hand. That would be nice to hear your voice. Following on from what you were just saying, Sarah, that also makes me think about the point that was made earlier about sort of responsiveness, the need to be responsive in the client's sort of moment. And I wonder if there's a you know, how challenging is it, and how much of a potential conflict is there between being that agile, being that responsive with clients who are, you know, under so much pressure, and also thinking about the impact of that on your, you know, on your own people. That's just one for both of you. Jackie?
I think that is a challenge, and I think that's something that we're going to have to try and look to overcome, because it's about, for me, it's an alignment of expectations. And obviously we all know that one of our duties is to manage clients' expectations. How do you do that in an ever-changing world, as Sarah has highlighted, which for many people, their worlds have been completely turned upside down. And it's being able to respond to clients in a way which gives them the satisfaction that, you know, you are looking after their interests and their needs, but still being able to do your job, and still as a firm being able to protect your people. Because I don't know how other people in the profession are feeling, but it's been tough. It's been tough for the last 18 months for everybody. And that's the same for our team, for our lawyers, for the management team as well. So I think the wellness and well-being, you know, without using buzzwords of our staff, does need to be paramount as well. Because just to, you know, yes, we invest in our people, just as, you know, people, you know, clients invest in us, but we need to invest in our people as well. So we need to make sure that they're looked after. And I don't think that any of us are there yet in terms of the delivery and aligning that expectations, because I really think that a lot has changed in terms of that in the last 18 months, and it's something that is going to take a while for as a profession to keep up with. For example, we're having to also deal with challenges of a court system with very, very significant delays, HMRC, other government bodies having significant delays, and often being the conduit and the buffer between that and the client, which completely outside of our control, and then there are frustrations, and there's frustrations both sides of the table. Just as with our lawyers, they're frustrated that you may not be able to get a response from the court system, but who are themselves under strain. So I don't think we're there yet. I think we need to all work on that, maybe collectively as a profession, to make sure clients appreciate just what we are doing in the background as well.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah, on that point about balancing the demands from your clients with the demands on your people?
Yeah, I think it's all about honesty, isn't it? And making your client, making your people feel empowered to say to a client, that's not okay. That's not okay for you to demand that from me at midnight when it's not urgent. I mean, I had an example last week of one of my contentious probate lawyers receiving 42 emails on a Saturday morning and expecting a response by lunchtime, and actually coaching your people as to how to respond to somebody who is stressed because it's a stressful situation for that individual, but who is being unrealistic and unreasonable. And it is about protecting our most precious thing, which is our people, because without our people, we don't have a business. But it's about training and developing our people and giving them the tools at a time when they are feeling very stressed. They're also feeling fairly, I don't really know what the word is. I can't think of the word, but we've never been in a situation before where our liberties have been curtailed and our ability to do things. So we're not functioning in a normal way. And having that ability to stand back, it causes us maybe not to react as we should sometimes to some of the pressures that are being brought to bear on us. And that's creating a whole additional level of stress and anxiety. And so actually spending some time with your lawyers and the rest of your business in how to manage those difficult situations and giving them some tools and the autonomy to deal with them.
Because that gives you some added responsibility as the overall leader of the firm, does it, to sort of to make that sort of filter down into the culture.
Exactly.
Yeah, Jackie.
I think as Sarah said, our people are our business. They're our workforce. They are the product really that we're selling. So it is fundamentally important. And I think to echo what Sarah said, it's been overwhelming for everybody that in the last year and a half, and yes, making clients, third parties understand and appreciate, and I think to echo what you're saying, the honesty side and the transparency, that is all aligned, and to be managing the idea and bringing it back to the focus about being client focused doesn't necessarily mean that we have to bend over and just take whatever the client wants to throw at us. So it's being empowered, as Sarah said, to go back and say, these are my boundaries, this is what I'm doing for you, this is how we work, this is what you can expect from us, and this is what I expect from you.
Yep, Thank you. I think somebody might have raised their hand. They may have done so in error, but I didn't catch them if they did. So if you do want to ask a question, please do raise your hand again and I'll try and catch you this time. I'm going to go back to technology again, if that's all right, and ask you, how interested is your client base in your sort of innovation strategies? And how do you sort of structure the way that you talk to them about potential innovation activity that you might want to make? Might want to pursue. Jackie?
So our client base are really quite involved with us in terms of innovations. So we do embrace technology in terms of disruption, work with a number of different legal tech offerings. And I think they may have been pushed to the sidelines during the last 18 months, whilst we've all been very focused on looking at ways in which we adapt to remote working, as opposed to how can we truly innovate and disrupt the market. And I've seen some really interesting products coming through which do that, which are working with the Eagles Lab, and with doing stuff in terms of the SRA sandboxing, and really trying to embrace that change but not so for us more. Yes, it's led by the clients. We're being driven and pushed on by what our clients are wanting us to embrace. But yeah.
Jackie, how about you, Sarah? What does innovation look like from a client perspective?
I would say less driven by the client's demands than Jackie. That it certainly hasn't changed significantly over the last 18 months. And I think as our client base has had to cope with a pandemic world, they have not required us to deliver in different solutions in a way they were prior to that pandemic. So the push on MI and data and insight was less in the last 18 months, but that's going to come back, and it's going to come back in spades. So probably we've been given a bit of time out, and it's interesting that Jackie said that I haven't had as many new products pushed my way during the last 18 months, probably because people thought nobody would buy them, but also it has quietened down, but it's going to come back, isn't it? And we all need to think about it. So I think the next 6 months, as we all feel a little bit more normal, whatever that is going to be really interesting.
Do you mean you haven't had as many products sort of pushed away by clients or by people providing?
No, definitely not by clients. The drive for clients is always around tracking transparency and MI and billing and access sometimes to their the way they access their documents and interact with us hasn't changed significantly. The difference I've noticed is that I've been less inundated with new products or attempts to sell new products than I was in prior to the pandemic.
That is interesting. Yes. In general, does the firm sort of collaborate with clients on potential solutions or changes to how legal processes work, or is it that clients come to you with what they want and then you deliver it?
No, I mean certainly. When you're looking at your client journey mapping with an established client, you're always looking at ways in which you might change that and innovate. And definitely, we've built bespoke packages for our clients in how they want their particular type of work managed, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay. All right. We've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to give you one more question. Where do you think there is the most potential at the moment in the market to improve the client journey, whether it's through technology or something else further, and so to sort of maintain the engagement that firms want as expectations presumably inevitably continue to change? you can either answer that with respect to your own firm, where you can see, the biggest sort of area where you might improve further, or just, what you see across the market as a whole. Jackie?
I think that it's going to have to be a bit more easy access for clients. I think that it's going to have to be an easier adaptation seamlessly, just as we can order a taxi. Yeah. I'm not suggesting that we will become an app and we manage to do that, but I think that the way, just in general society, people want something that's very user friendly, that they can just engage and they get what they want out of it. I'm not sure that the delivery of the legal work will change per se, or the advice, but that method of delivery and how that interaction with the client, I think there's going to be more seamless integration.
It is that that demand, basically, that sort of real-time demand. How about you, Sarah?
I agree with Jackie. I think it is all about, it's all about the mode of delivery. And that's going to change as your client base changes, and the environment in which they live in their home life and how they interact. That translates directly into how they expect to interact with their lawyers, and will change going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Lots of food for thought there for all of us. So I'm just going to say thank you to Jackie Watts at A City Law Firm, and of course to Sarah Perry at Wright Hassall. And thank you for watching this session, and for your questions, and for your attendance throughout LPM 2021, of which this is the final session. And I hope to see many of you again next year, either on a similar platform or in person. Let's see. Thank you. Bye-bye.